Another Christmas toy memory that really stands out in my mind still is the year that I first got my Star Trek The Next Generation action figures from Playmates Toys. So Star Trek The Next Generation is one of those TV series that I got very, very into in my youth. Still to this day, I consider myself a very big Star Trek fan, and The Next Generation always holds this very special, very nostalgic place in my heart. I really, really love that series. And I honestly think that part of the reason I enjoy Star Trek The Next Generation so much is that I remember that being a show that I watched very religiously with my dad. It's something that we both shared a love for together. In fact, there were multiple members of my family that loved this show. My dad and his mom, my grandmother, and my aunt, we all loved Star Trek The Next Generation. So I even remember, not only did I get to stay up every night and watch Star Trek with my dad before I went to bed, but when we would go to visit my grandparents, we would turn Star Trek on and watch it together. It was one of those weird, crazy phenomenons for me, because nothing I had really been super interested in at that point had been something that I'd shared with my dad or even my grandma. So I think that's one of the reasons that I like Star Trek so very much.
Computer subspace transmission to Starfleet Command from Enterprise. Stardate 45481.4. It's a single blast. Source unknown. Lieutenant Worf checks weapon systems. Captain Picard orders full shields from Lieutenant LaForge in engineering. Suddenly there is an alien presence on the ship. It's one of the Borg, a hostile robotic life form. Commander Riker returns phaser fire.
Star Trek The Next Generation action figures from Playmates.
So I've already told a story in a previous video about the year that my dad terrified me of Hordak. This is the year that I think my dad kind of redeems himself, because going into Christmas of probably 1992, this would have been when the first line of Star Trek figures were released from Playmates Toys. Going into Christmas, this isn't something that I necessarily expected to get, but I was huge into Star Trek at the time, so it was just an absolute perfect thing, and I don't know why I never thought of it going into Christmas morning. But the reason that this stands out to me so much is I still remember tearing through presents underneath the Christmas tree, and I'm sure you've all been in this position before. You probably all remember when you were kids. You kind of steered clear of the boxes that were obviously boxes containing clothes, right? Because we all knew which boxes had clothes in them. They were all very specifically shaped. They were meant to hold clothes. You knew which ones were your toys that were wrapped up in wrapping paper and which ones had clothes. So, as a kid, of course, those were the presents I was least interested in. I wanted to open toys. Well, there were probably two or three of these boxes wrapped under the tree with all my presents that I thought were obviously boxes of clothes. And so I was avoiding them. I was opening other things. And I remember my dad kind of saying, "Hey, why don't you open these?" So reluctantly, I finally opened up the box, took off the paper. I took the lid off the box, fully expecting to see some t-shirts or some underwear or some socks or something that, I wasn't going to be excited to get. But instead, the box was full of a couple, maybe up to 4, Star Trek The Next Generation figures from Playmates. And as a collector, you guys all know now how we stack card backs, right? We stack them to kind of fit them into totes better. That's how they were stacked in these clothing boxes. So they were totally incognito. I was blown away. I couldn't believe that I had opened these up and I got these Star Trek figures. So I got tons of the figures. Also that same Christmas, I got the shuttlecraft. And then later on, when we went to my grandmother's house, my grandma got me the transporter playset. So it turned out to be this huge Star Trek The Next Generation Christmas. And I think one of the things that, again, was so great is that while I was opening these and playing with them, my dad was just as excited as me. I mean, we were playing with them together. He was looking at them all. If you've collected these, you might remember that there's little serial numbers printed on the bottom of the feet. He thought that was a big deal. Obviously, those toys are very cheap now, but, it was something fun and unique at the time. And to this day, of all the toys that I've got in my collection. I have very few things that are still in my collection from my childhood, and I still have every single one of those Star Trek figures I got that year.